title of this video is Would You Be My Slave? And the funny thing about it is, even though Matt says he's against slavery, he continuously owns these callers on the topic of slavery in the Bible. My name is Shadow Infidel, and that name has two meanings. The first meaning is that I'm an atheist who happens to be black. The second meaning is because nobody knows it except for me and for you guys, I guess, but can you please keep it a secret? Promise you won't tell anybody. You may or may not know that this is my third time doing a video about Matt Dillahunty on my channel, and that's partly because when I first accidentally stumbled upon atheist content on YouTube, he was one of the first people that I saw and led me down the rabbit hole, which now we're here. The following clips will demonstrate the point that I alluded to earlier, and if you'd like to continue the conversation when this is over, please hit me up in the comments below. Enjoy.
Let me cut to the chase. Ryan, would you be my slave under the rules established in Exodus 21?
If I could be, see, you keep saying slave, but it doesn't say slave, it says servant.
Oh my God.
If I was
Ryan, would you be my servant under the rules of Exodus? No, shut up. Would you be my servant under the rules of Exodus 21?
It's a bad idea. Don't do it.
Why does this take even half a fucking second? This is the embarrassing thing. I'm gonna let you go, Ryan. I've already hung up because I want you to go and think about this. I'm not joking when I talk about how much this breaks my fucking heart to watch the poison that religion has imbued people with to the point where they will bend over backwards and hem and haw about the easiest question I could ask. Are people property? Can you beat them? Would you be my slave, my servant, if you want to pedantically? It wasn't written in English anyway. Under what Exodus 21 says. It is grossly immoral. It is an embarrassment that anybody would pause for more than half a second to answer that question. Think about what your religion has done to your head. It is making you a slave to the religion because you no longer have the free will and exercise to say, this is wrong. Have you got your Bible open to Exodus 21 yet?
Yes, sir.
What's verse 26 say?
And if a man smite the eye of his servant or the eye of his maid, that it perish, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake.
Okay, now that's a specific rule. Oh, there's my glasses. I couldn't see them because I didn't have my glasses. It was actually behind the laptop. So that's a specific rule that says, hey, if I strike my male slave and I put their eye out, I have to let them go free, right?
I completely disagree with you. I think it is saying what happens if you do that.
That's what I just said.
Penal code. Well, no,
Valerie, listen. Look, verse 26, when a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant and destroys it, he must let the slave go free in compensation for his eye. That's what the verse says, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What happens if I put out the eye of my neighbor?
Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Right.
So we have, with regular human beings that we share equality with, if I put out their eye, I lose an eye for an eye. And this is a special rule for slaves. I don't lose an eye if I put a slave's eye out. I have to let the slave go free, right?
I would think that you're maybe assuming that.
That's what it fucking says, word for word. Okay, go back to verse 20. We'll go back to verse 20.
Okay.
Read that one.
And if a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall be surely punished.
Now the next verse.
Notwithstanding, if he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money.
So if I beat my slave and he dies within a couple days, I'm to be punished. But if I beat my slave and he doesn't die within a couple days, I'm not to be punished because slaves are money, property.
I don't think it means that.
Well, that's tough shit. I apologize, but you think that there's a perfect God.
Yes, sir.
Who instructed this to be written down. that specifically sets up not just 2 different tiers, but 3 different tiers. Because if you go back to the beginning of Exodus 21, it has all the special rules for your Jewish slaves. You have to let them go after 7 years unless you trick them into becoming your slaves for life. You have to let all slaves go every 50 years, and people want to tout this in the year of Jubilee as if it's a good thing. But if I buy, it's absurd. Oh, I'm going to let you go in 50 years when we have our year of Jubilee, or 23 years from now because I bought you midway through, but I got you for the next 23 years. And it also, the Bible goes through to say that slaves are your money that you can pass on to your offspring. That's in Leviticus and I think in Deuteronomy or one of the other.
I'm familiar with all those verses.
Would you, Valerie? Valerie?
And it also,
Valerie?
Oh, yes, sir.
Would you be my slave under the rules in Exodus 21?
I absolutely would. In fact, I think that's more moral. You were talking about the prison system. I hate the prison system myself. I wish we had that system instead of the prison system. Because if somebody steals something from you, instead of being locked away and rotting in a cell where they'll get raped and beat up, they stay with the family they stole from for 6 years. Work for that family.
I think you've done the impossible. I think Matt just quit.
Hang on. First of all, we know that the Bible's not entirely true and it's not entirely accurate, and it does sanction things like slavery, which I would assume you think is immoral, right?
It depends on if you're talking about Hebraic slavery or Roman slavery, or
is it morally wrong to own another human being as property? Is it morally wrong to beat them? Is it morally wrong to pass them on to your children as property?
You mean a highly evolved animal? What's wrong with that?
I'm asking you if this is morally wrong or not.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you think that slavery as it's described in Exodus 21 is morally correct?
I think that slavery as it's described in the entire Bible is correct.
Okay, then you're immoral. You are in favor of owning people's property, beating them as long as they don't.
No, I didn't say I was in favor of it.
You just you just said it was morally correct.
Are you not? My view on it.
Seth, are you not in favor of that which is morally correct?
Yes, I am.
And you just said this was morally correct.
I think the Bible is morally correct on all of its pronouncements, yes.
So then you're in favor of what the Bible actually advocates that is morally correct, right?
Right.
So you're in favor of slavery as described in Exodus 21, right?
I'm in favor of slavery. Okay, hold on. Can you just let me explain fully what I mean?
I think this was a really simple question.
Okay, well, just give me a second and I'll do my best to explain. Slavery is sometimes not more than indentured servanthood.
I don't care, Seth. I don't care.
Matt,
Seth, I do not give, Seth, I swear, Seth, I do not give a rat's ass about indentured servitude and the sloppy, stupid apologetics that try to do this. I'm talking about what the book actually says. I'm talking about slavery, owning people's property, beating them as long as they don't die. I am not talking about indentured servitude, which, by the way, I also think is immoral. But we're not talking about that, so please don't misdirect to it. I asked you what you thought about what the Bible says in Exodus 21, and now you're tap dancing.
Okay, can you let me fully explain my position?
Maybe, and maybe not. It depends. Are you going to answer the question, or are you going to tap dance?
Okay, I'm in favor of all of the moral pronouncements of Scripture. What I see as far as slavery goes is that I see Hebrew slavery as no more than indentured servitude.
How is it that God can inspire a book that says it's okay to own people as property if in fact it's immoral?
Because in that time period, and even today, slavery is a given. In fact, there's more slaves today.
You know what else is a given? Matthew, you know what else is a given? Rape,
yes.
Murder, lying, eating shellfish. All of those things are a given about human nature, right?
Yes, to respond to eating shellfish part, remember in the New Testament, Christ did say that what goes into a man is not what makes him unclean.
Right. So thank you for pointing out. Thanks for pointing out that Jesus was able to update one thing that got wrong in the Old Testament. Does Jesus ever say slavery is wrong?
But Jesus actually fulfilled the
Does Jesus ever say slavery is wrong?
Yes.
Where?
When they say do not oppress, when Jesus said
That's
love
not
your neighbor as yourself.
No, see, you're using
love an enemy.
You're
as
using
yourself.
Okay. Maybe the slaves aren't my enemy, and maybe I'm not hurting them, but I still own them as property. Did Jesus ever say it's wrong to own people as property?
No. Let's think of a situation. Let's say
I don't need a situation.
I guess the point is, Matthew, your argument seems to be, well, this is something you're never going to stop people from doing, so God didn't bother forbidding it. And what Matt keeps pointing out to you is there's a ton of things that people have done throughout history, they continue to do today, that God forbidding it didn't stop them. Did God not know that it wouldn't stop them? Why didn't he just put rules around it?
That's actually a very good point. God forbid murder. God forbid stealing anything.
Even though people are still going to do it, right? So instead, but what you're saying is this thing, your argument for why he didn't forbid it is because he knew people would just do it anyway. And what's weird is that globally, slavery is not just a given. It's like a cultural thing in some areas.
Yeah, we got rid of it here.
Well, actually, we haven't gotten rid of it here. Human trafficking is still really bad in the U.S. That's a huge... Which, by the way...
But it's illegal.
It is illegal.
Right. It's not legal anymore.
It was illegal in the Old Testament, too.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Part of the laws explained how to run your slaves.
Exodus 21:16 that you read to me last time said, if you kidnap anyone and
That's
sell them
not,
as a slave,
that is not, Matthew, this is the problem. Every time one of you people thinks that you can make excuses for slavery, a passage that says don't kidnap doesn't tell you anything about slavery, because slavery doesn't just occur through kidnapping. And a passage about that is also about...
exactly right.
And a passage about that...
correct.
I know I'm absolutely right. Let me finish. And a passage about kidnapping isn't about slavery. There are other ways that people enter into slavery. My objection is that it is an endorsement that you can own people as property, pass them on to your kids. We're 10 minutes past where we should have stopped the show, so I'm going to end the call here, but I'm going to let you know that you're welcome to call back unless you're going to keep making excuses to find a way to make it seem like we can find a way to make slavery a softer, gentler slavery, and my God is such a weak-ass God that he can tell us not to lie, but not to not own people. I actually have a Bible right here. So, I mean, we could maybe go through it together, because when I did my video on slavery, that's all I did was point out what the Bible actually says. So let's...
No, I completely agree with you, and I agree that slavery is wrong politically. But slavery exists. It exists metaphysically, and what I mean by that is you can be a slave in even today's Western society.
Yeah, I'm not talking about metaphoric slavery. I'm talking about actually owning people as property, which is what the Bible advocates.
Okay, fair enough. But slavery exists. It exists regardless of what the politics of the day are.
Okay.
Like it exists. You can exist as wage slavery.
Davis.
You can exist as slavery to your own addiction.
Davis.
Mm-hmm.
None of that. Okay. None of this is remotely relevant. Does the Bible, in Exodus 21 and other places, advocate for the permissibility of owning people as property and beating them as long as they don't die within a couple days?
Yes.
Then what difference does it make if in the modern world you might be a metaphorical wage slave? That is a completely irrelevant thing when we are talking about what the Bible supports.
No, it isn't, because what the Bible recognizes is that no matter what the political reality is, no matter if you outlaw slavery or not, it's going to exist.
Bullshit.
And you need to channel it.
Bullshit. This is the most embarrassing apologetic I've ever heard on this, okay? Does the Bible allow people to own slaves as property, pass them on to their kids, beat them as long as they don't die within a couple days, and does it have special rules for what you do with Hebrew slaves versus your non-Hebrew slaves? Yes or no?
Yes.
Have we not outlawed that form of slavery?
Oh, yes, we have.
So, when you say that it'll always be around and can't be outlawed, that's not true. Would you like to start over?
What I'm trying to get at, Matt, is that you will always have servitude or slavery or indentured.
I don't give a shit. If you were God, would you ever include a passage that says it's okay to own people as property?
Well, it depends on if I'm appealing to politics or something deeper than that.
Wait.
He was a
Did
slave
you not
to politics,
hear
apparently.
God is appealing to politics? God isn't making proclamations about morality?
Yes.
He was being PC, I guess.
Morality,
Huh?
yes.
Yeah, you have a weak-ass God. I'm moving on. If your God can be trumped by Trump, you have a weak-ass God.
Why would it do the world a lot of good if I changed your mind? First of all, I have hang on, let me finish. Let me finish. First of all, I have no reason to think you're going to change your mind because you keep demonstrating that you couldn't recognize a rational argument if it walked up wearing a t-shirt saying rational argument and smacked you about the head with a rational argument fish. But you keep dodging this issue of owning someone as property so that they are your property. They cannot exercise their freedoms, their desires. They are yours. And you think that, I'll ask you again, do you have a problem with owning someone as property such that they're not free to go about their life as they want?
No, I don't have a problem with that, and I'll tell you why.
I don't care why. You're gone. And this is why I see no point in engaging with G-Man. This is what you see when a religion has so poisoned a mind that they can't even read what is plainly there. They have to go find some way to make it good. It says you can beat your slaves as long as they don't die within 2 or 3 days, but I'll go find this other verse here that says if you beat a man and kill him, you're to be put to death. By the way, that verse says man. There's completely separate rules for female slaves as well. So not only is there a different set of rules for Hebrew slaves and non-Hebrew slaves, but there's also a different set of rules for females. And they don't follow that. They don't follow the released after 6 years. The passages, there's Leviticus 22, there's Deuteronomy, there's Exodus, and I put them all in this video. It's like 35 minutes long where I'm going through the Bible and reading it and explaining it. And when a mind gets so poisoned by religion, the foundational presupposition that he has is that what God says is necessarily good. What the Bible has to say is necessarily good. And that forces you to start twisting things around until you can find a way to make it good. And when you can't do that and you're backed into a corner, it forces you to say something like, yes, I don't have any objection to someone owning someone else as property so that they are unable to exercise their freedom and go about their life. And this is coming, which I think is kind of extra sad, from an African-American male.
And you will let me get a word in, and I can explain why.
I tell you what. I tell you what. Whether or not you get another word in depends on the next things that you say. Go ahead.
Concerning the whole thing with slavery again, the video that I made, I primarily focused on the slaves that the Hebrews had amongst their own people and whatnot, which was done because a lot of them couldn't support themselves for economic reasons.
And you don't think it's G-Man?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
You don't think it's dishonest to only focus on Hebrew slaves and claim what you said was the Bible says you have to let slaves go after 7 years, and what I showed you was that you were only talking about Hebrews who owned other Hebrew slaves because that rule only applied to fellow Jews. You portrayed it as the Bible's position on slavery when in fact it was the Bible's position on Jews. It was a special set of circumstances for them, and it includes a loophole by which you can enslave them forever. And you don't find that it was dishonest to say that?
Wait a minute. There is no loophole. There is no loophole in the Bible that says that
I'll bet you a paycheck.
That's how you interpreted it.
No.
But can I present my evidence?
No, actually, you can't present a damn thing just yet because I already provided you the passage. I'm not even going to look it up. It's Exodus 21, and after it says that you must let them go after serving 7 years, it says if they came in with a wife, that wife leaves to them. But if you gave them a wife, and they come to you and say, I don't want to leave my wife. You then take them before the elders of the town and they say, I love my master and I want to stay with my master. You drive a spike through the air to mark that they are yours and they become your property forever. The Bible describes exactly how you can enslave your fellow Jews forever. And that is get them single and marry them off because their wives and their kids remain your property if they didn't come into the slave situation with them. That, my friend, is an absolute loophole, which I already told you about.
You are going to disagree on
then you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And you're done. It is blatantly written there, word for word. Move on to your argument for the existence of God.
Okay, so we agree to disagree on the slavery.
No, you're done. Bye.
The Bible explicitly, though, allows you to enslave non-Jews forever, stating that they are your property and can be passed on to your children, and that you can beat them as long as they don't die within 2 or 3 days. All of this is in the Bible. How is any of it moral?
Okay, none of that slavery is a slavery that we think, here in the Western culture.
You could beat them.
It's
Mike.
not. And remember, the slaves were supposed to be treated correctly.
No.
Bond servants like Peter.
Mike, you're on hold. I apologize because I realize you can't hear the mic when you're talking. But it doesn't matter. Your claim that this isn't like the slavery that we know from American history is complete and total bullshit. I just told you it says that you can beat them and that they are your property. How is it moral to have another human being as property and be permitted to beat them? I don't care if they beat them regularly. I don't care if they were nice to them on the Sabbath. How is it moral to say that one human being can own another human being as property and beat them? It's Christian scholars, the people who've actually studied this, have been trying a gazillion different types of apologetics, all of which ultimately fail. But my question was simple. Is this moral or not? And the reason Mike wouldn't answer it is the same reason that Christians all around the world avoid this question. It's because they intrinsically understand that it's not moral, and they cannot reconcile this with the fact that it's in a Bible that they want to adhere to as a literal moral guide. And the simple solution is to chuck the Bible out, because we don't need it for anything. Even if there were things that are true, which there undoubtedly are, even if there are things in it that are good, which there undoubtedly are, they're not good because they're in the Bible. They're not good because they come from a God. They are good because they are good. And they are something that we can discover without ever appealing to an old book and without having to tap dance around and sacrifice our humanity to make excuses about how we treat rape victims and how we own people as property and how there's some grand context in which all of this isn't very bad. You have sacrificed your humanity for the sake of genuflecting to your religion, and it's abominable.